I know I'm human. If you were all these things, then you'd just attack me right now. So some of you are still human.
In 1982, John Carpenter made us experience hell in the lethal cold of Antarctica. The Thing, which focuses on a group of American scientists stationed in a base in Antarctica, does not merely captivate with its practical effects, unrivaled even today, but also employs cosmic horror so masterfully that if H.P. Lovecraft were alive, he would personally offer his congratulations. A group isolated from the world, battling an alien entity whose horror surpasses human comprehension, silence, fear, paranoia, the deadly cold of Antarctica, and Ennio Morricone's simple yet unforgettable score. A tight space, a handful of people struggling to survive, and the suffocating tension that at any moment the person closest to you could turn into a cosmic monster and drag you into its organic hell. Unceasing suspicion, never-ending doubt. While the film's cosmic horror aspect hails from the infinite, dark depths of the universe, its social component presents a socio-political reality not far removed from our own. Humans do not fear what they do not know, they fear what they cannot define. The unknown is dangerous, but something that appears familiar yet cannot be fully understood is truly terrifying. If you see a dog approaching on an empty street in the dead of night, you grasp the threat and back away. But if you encounter a figure with a human silhouette that is not quite human, you freeze in fear. That's why figures like Michael Myers are frightening. They have human qualities, but are not human. The brain's helplessness in this state of uncertainty sparks a fundamental terror in mankind. The Thing teaches us to fear not what is distant, but what is near. Not the outsider, but the one already inside. There was once a star in a remote corner of a universe scattered with countless solar systems, where intelligent animals invented the concept of meaning. It was the grandest and most hypocritical minute of world history, yet still just a minute. After a few breaths of nature, the star froze, and the intelligent animals were forced to die. One could invent such a fable and still fail to show how pitiful, shadowy, and fleeting the human intellect appears in nature, how aimless and ordinary it is. There were infinities in which it did not exist, and when it is gone, nothing will have happened. Friedrich Nietzsche's words sound like the philosophical underpinning of H.P. Lovecraft's stories. You might sense Lovecraft's cosmic pessimism here, and you can interpret how humanity's existence is meaningless in a vast universe, how even its own existence is worthless. It's no secret that Lovecraft was influenced by Nietzsche, yet the difference lies here. According to Nietzsche, pessimism is not so much a definition of reality as it is a symptom caused by reality, an ailment that can be overcome. Yes, we must tear down our idols, our false certainties, but only to build a new bridge from their ruins, ultimately to become the ideal Übermensch. Nietzsche's frequently misunderstood words, and yet Lovecraft is such a person that even Nietzsche seems somewhat idealistic by comparison. While Nietzsche, toward the end of his life, managed to assign some sort of meaning to existence, why did Lovecraft not follow the same path? Perhaps the answer lies in the spirit of the times. When Nietzsche died, Lovecraft was only 10 years old. Moreover, by Lovecraft's era, as we entered the 20th century, science had taken a great leap forward. With minds like Einstein, Freud, and Tesla, humanity began to grasp the universe's infinity for the first time. And along with that came the chilling confrontation with reality. We are not the center of the universe. Nietzsche addressed a similar point in his philosophy, though focusing more on religion, specifically the deconstruction and subsequent reconstruction of Christian theology. As humanity began to seek meaning in the universe and science, building new idols that would lead to National Socialism, as Adorno might suggest, Lovecraft saw only meaninglessness in the infinity of the cosmos. According to Nietzsche's nihilism, there was no absolute reality anymore. If there is no reality, then our existence also lacks any intrinsic validity, no morality, no meaning. In that case, giving reality meaning should serve as both a tool and a result, finding a purpose for life itself. When humanity fully comprehends reality, it will break its chains and become the Übermensch. But according to Lovecraft, fully comprehending reality is impossible. The universe is far greater than what we can perceive, a darkness of proportions that surpass our insect-like existence. Humans cannot understand this darkness, and what cannot be understood is feared. Lovecraft wrote stories embodying the fear caused by this darkness and infinity, creatures so immense and beyond comprehension that the human mind cannot fathom them. The foundation of his work is the philosophy of cosmism, where the ordinary human life is small and insignificant compared to the vast mysteries of the universe. Lovecraft's Lovecraft was scarcely known during his lifetime. Although his stories appeared in leading magazines like Weird Tales, his name never became widely recognized. Those who prevented Lovecraft's name and fiction from disappearing into the dusty shelves of history were his pen pals and their group, known as the Lovecraft Circle. According to his fictional universe, there are entities far greater than us, even beyond our comprehension. We are defenseless against them, and our lives hold no meaning or value. Lovecraft says, "I think the most merciful thing in the world is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far. The sciences, each straining in its own direction, have hitherto harmed us little. But someday the piecing together of dissociated knowledge will open up such terrifying vistas of reality and of our frightful position therein, that we shall either go mad from the revelation or flee from the deadly light into the peace and safety of a new dark age." Nietzsche and Lovecraft meet at a point of nihilism, where the universe is a vast chaos without humanity at its center. The question is, should we interpret this chaos, fail to interpret it, or realize from the start that it cannot be interpreted? In Lovecraftian terms, is the fear about not knowing something, not being able to know something, or learning something that you should never have known and going mad from the knowledge? For Nietzsche, a godless, meaningless world in which we are not central actually provides opportunities. That's why we must destroy God, so we can grow and replace God ourselves. In this process of apotheosis, passive nihilism is the disease Nietzsche wants to overcome. If you believe in nothing and thus see no meaning, eventually you will lose belief in yourself as well. It's like facing existential questioning and indifferentism and ceasing to be human. Do we realize we are no longer ourselves because we've grasped reality, or do we become alienated in the process of trying to understand it? In other words, did Gregor Samsa turn into an insect, or only then realize he was one? While Kafka visualizes alienation from humanity as turning into an insect, Lovecraft populates his world with countless creatures sporting tentacles, eyes, and deformed shapes. They are not like us. Nietzsche says that this alienation and atheism were not outcomes or events, but instincts within him. "I'm too curious, I question too much, I'm too passionate to settle for unsatisfying answers. God is such an unsatisfying answer. For us thinkers, he is an annoyance, even a prohibition. Do not think, well, isn't killing God too vast an action? Shouldn't we become gods ourselves to be worthy of it?" Yes, Nietzsche cried out, and Lovecraft answered, "The truth is a nothingness that can drive humans mad, and if we must go mad in the face of reality, Lovecraft prefers to remain happily ignorant." When Nietzsche destroyed religion, he believed we would reach the truth behind it and become divine. For Lovecraft, that truth was never meant for humans. Religion, then, was a futile attempt to give meaning to this terrible meaninglessness. The horror is a curtain drawn before the truth, promising a more beautiful world. And Lovecraft, as if reviving that attempt at meaning, built his own mythology. He pulled back the curtain. Nietzsche suggests that the bridge built from the ruins of shattered idols will lead us to a better tomorrow. Lovecraft, on the other hand, saw a meaningless bridge leading to an abyss and started constructing his own idols to counter it. The Cthulhu mythos that Lovecraft's universe relies upon is essentially a kind of religion. It is humanity's attempt to make sense of a terrifying universe. In this fictional universe, the Arab Abdul al-Hazred understands the chaos of the cosmos through ancient books and journals, goes mad, and then records his encounters with demons, the old ones who ruled the earth before humanity, how to communicate with the spirit world, and how to reanimate the dead in a book called the Necronomicon. This fiction forms the basis of Lovecraft's world. Without commenting further on Lovecraft's religious allegory, we must note that over time Lovecraft shifted from mythology toward a purely scientific foundation. In his stories, he placed great emphasis on scientific detail, often to the point of exhausting the reader. His main characters are scientists. The Necronomicon may be a religious allegory, a key, but those who use it and face the horrors of the universe are scientists. Fear and, as a result, madness in the face of reality's emptiness become the healthiest possible reactions when looking into this abyss of meaninglessness. This often happens in Lovecraft's stories. The pattern runs similarly. Usually, ordinary people, often scientists, embark on adventures they should never have attempted. In a Kafkaesque manner, they go mad when confronted by the universe's dreadful forces against which they are utterly helpless. Lovecraft avoids detailed descriptions. He defines the characters' fears and feelings, but leaves the appearance and dimensions of the monsters to the reader's imagination. At the Mountains of Madness, published in 1936, is a crucial milestone. A research team from Miskatonic University embarks on a mission to Antarctica. During excavations, they find fossils underground. Part of the team heads north for more detailed research and discovers a mountain as tall as Everest. At the foot of that mountain, they find life forms that lived long before humanity, frozen. Of course, these life forms are not dead. The findings and research process soon become a horrific struggle for life and death. Just 2 years after At the Mountains of Madness in 1938, John W. Campbell's story Who Goes There was published in the same magazine. In it, a group of scientists stationed in Antarctica detects a second magnetic field besides the known one. Investigating it, they learn the cause. Beneath the ice, they discover a spaceship that crashed on Earth millions of years ago. Next to the ship lies a frozen thing. They don't know that the thing is not the alien that operated the ship. The thing is an organism capable of endlessly assimilating any living creature, replicating their appearance, memories, and even personality. An entity that has absorbed millions of life forms over billions of years. Unaware of the danger, the team brings the creature back to the station and revives it. Thus begins a fear and suspicion-filled process in which the team members are assimilated one by one. Realizing their helplessness against the thing, the team decides to isolate the station and prevent any planes or helicopters from entering or leaving. Now comes the waiting game. Who is still human and who has turned into the thing? Campbell's story evolved into a masterpiece. Just as he was influenced by Lovecraft, he influenced hundreds of works himself. 12 years later, in 1950, the famous Hollywood producer and director Howard Hawks discovered the story and wanted to bring it to the big screen. Who's to say what beings from another planet might be like? I see no reason they couldn't be completely different from us, he remarked. And he did it. In Hawks's film adaptation, scientists discover that the thing is a kind of plant that feeds on blood. Unlike the shapeless creature in the book, it's a humanoid, Frankenstein-like monster. Although Lovecraft was influenced by Edgar Allan Poe, he knew how to bid farewell to Gothic horror and open the door to cosmic horror. Hawks, however, was not so bold. Frankenstein was still Frankenstein. In the 1950s, America's national sentiments were mixed. After Hiroshima, skepticism about science was growing, and scientists were seen as dangerous meddlers who tampered with things better left alone. At the end of Hawks's film, it's American soldiers and a few smart scientists who defeat the alien invader. In fact, the scientist in the film betrays humanity for the sake of science. When the team is about to kill the thing in the final scene, Dr. Carrington steps forward and addresses the thing. "Don't go forward, they'll kill you. You're wiser than anything on Earth. Use your mind, listen to me. I'm not your enemy, I am a scientist." But he is not facing a wise alien, just a monster. Science fiction fans might recall Ridley Scott's Prometheus at this point. This is no coincidence because Ridley Scott's 1979 masterpiece Alien was also influenced by The Thing. That Hollywood couldn't let go of Gothic horror was best demonstrated by the 1972 film Horror Express, also inspired by Who Goes There? Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing continued their adventures as though they never left the Hammer Films era. To bring cosmic horror to the big screen required vision, and the person who had it was a child who at 10 years old watched these films in the theater. His name was John Carpenter. How ironic that in the opening scene of Halloween, the film where Carpenter sowed the seeds of the slasher genre 27 years later, the TV is showing Hawks's original 1951 version of The Thing. The studio had long wanted to make a Thing movie, and when Ridley Scott's Alien broke box office records in 1979, they gave it the green light. Carpenter was offered the chance to direct The Thing. For the first time, he would have a large budget. Carpenter accepted and set to work. Unlike Hawks, he aimed to remain faithful to the book and the original story. Universal provided a $10 million budget, of which $200,000 was allocated for effects, but that figure would rise to $1.5 million. Carpenter chose Dean Cundey as his cinematographer, the same man he worked with on Halloween. Cundey's mastery of light and shadow had impressed Carpenter. He gave him exactly what he wanted. In the original Halloween script, Michael Myers is referred to as the Shape. Cundey conveyed that idea visually. The most famous example is the scene where Myers' mask emerges from the darkness in the background. You never know when or from where Myers might appear. Camera angles and composition always kept the background active, unsettling the audience. If you watch carefully, you'll notice a similar formula applied in The Thing. In Halloween, there was a cool blue light contrasted with warmer orange tones. The film's opening and poster use a pumpkin to represent this contrast. In The Thing, a similar contrast would be achieved with the Arctic ice and the flamethrower. Bill Lancaster was tasked with writing the screenplay. In Lancaster's version, the creature was rarely seen throughout the film. As you know, the human imagination surpasses any image. That's why this style is often preferred in horror. Meanwhile, Dale Kuipers had designed the creature, but after he had an accident, the job passed to a 21-year-old, no joke, Rob Bottin. This was the turning point. Bottin convinced Carpenter to show the creature for a greater impact on the audience, and instead of one clear design, to present various forms during each assimilation. Anyone else might have dismissed this 21-year-old, but Carpenter said, "Go draw me a crazy storyboard," and so he did. When the design was finished, the team realized the effects budget would have to increase to at least $750,000. Nervously, they showed Universal the designs, and the studio was immediately convinced. Drew Struzan created the iconic poster in just 24 hours without even reading the script. Ennio Morricone composed the soundtrack. Carpenter didn't use all the pieces and wrote some music himself. And if a film can afford not to use some of Morricone's compositions, understand that it's a masterpiece. Quentin Tarantino was so influenced by this film that when he made The Hateful Eight, essentially a tribute, he commissioned an original soundtrack from Morricone, who then reused tracks not used in The Thing, completing the circle. By now, I think everyone understands the cosmic horror theme of The Thing, but what about its socio-political metaphor? In the 1950s, the phenomenon known as the Second Red Scare took hold in the United States. The fear of Soviet invasion didn't just shape US foreign policy, it also created a huge sense of fear and paranoia among the population. Due to McCarthyism, the US government spent huge sums investigating and tracking potential communists. Scientists and artists were not exempt. If you know about Oppenheimer or have seen the new Fallout series, you'll understand these references. Similarly, the scientist character in the 1951 The Thing was a result of this. Remember, the scientist wanted to collaborate with the creature. Americans feared that communists within the US could leak nuclear or technological secrets to the Soviets. Ironically, scientists Klaus Fuchs and Ted Alvin Hall, who worked on the Manhattan Project, really did pass information to the Soviets. In 1981, critic Roger Ebert wrote that the film used fear of communists as an allegory. Like the victims of The Thing, communists looked, talked, and acted just like your best friend, but carried a deadly secret inside. So, The Thing is undoubtedly a cosmic creature from a distant point in the universe, but the film's focus is not the cosmic horror it creates, it's the paranoia it causes. For example, the scientist Blair realizes early on that they have no chance against the Thing and isolates the station. When the computer shows the results, his only reaction is, by locking himself in along with the creature, he saves the world. In fact, this is the film's most heroic act. It takes longer for MacReady, the protagonist, to reach the same conclusion. Blair might have stepped right out of a Lovecraft story. He becomes what he fears. Lovecraft was a racist. He reflected his xenophobia in his work. Often the main character would discover they were related to a fish, frog, or other creature and go mad. Likewise, Blair quickly understands that everyone in the station must die. Otherwise, they will all become that thing. Yet in the end, he turns into a grotesque version of what he feared most. Kurt Russell's character, MacReady, is not a pure hero. He enforces his authority not with kindness, but at gunpoint. You see this from the start of the film. MacReady plays chess against a computer. When the computer anticipates his moves, he pours whiskey into it and destroys it. This foreshadows the film's end. The opening scene is intriguing both cinematically and allegorically. A Norwegian scientist is chasing a dog, and like the American team, we don't understand why. We pity the poor dog, just like the team does. Yet the Norwegian team, Lars's team, has already suffered. They are warning the Americans not to take the Thing into their base, but due to a language barrier, the Americans don't understand. Lars's group is like a post-communist country warning the Americans to close their borders. By taking the dog in, the Americans paved the way for disaster. From the very beginning, the film's theme is suspicion and paranoia. And it's so successful that, for example, one of the early scenes has MacReady shooting Clark in the head. Because Clark was close to the dogs, the film has made us suspicious of him and we swallow the bait. But Clark is human, which makes MacReady a killer. Does that matter to us as viewers? Not really. Having seen the Thing's grotesque face, we side with MacReady now. What MacReady does is necessary, just like the American government's actions during the era. When cornered, MacReady grabs a stick of dynamite and says he'll blow up the entire camp if anyone comes closer. Spoiler, he does exactly that. Interpreted through the lens of the Cold War, MacReady is willing to accept a nuclear fallout rather than lose. Also, don't forget that The Thing came out during America's AIDS crisis. In the summer of 1981, American doctors discovered a strange disease among young homosexual men. This disease would become the deadliest pandemic in recent memory. American society panicked. The disease was invisible and could infect anyone at any time. It didn't show on the outside. Only a blood test could confirm it, just like The Thing's famous blood test scene. Note also that there are no women in the station. Everyone is male. The film's main motif is the struggle between individuality and collectivism. MacReady is an isolated figure. While everyone else stays together in the station, his quarters are separate and outside. From the beginning, he isn't part of the group. If you try to understand the Thing's motivation, you'll also grasp its fundamental difference from MacReady. The Thing wants to assimilate everyone, to unite, to become a single entity. It can't understand why humans resist. Another question is not just who is assimilated, but am I still myself? No one is sure whether they've been assimilated. No one is certain of themselves except Macready. For Macready, everyone else might already be assimilated. It's like the agents in The Matrix. The Matrix asks a more optimistic question, while The Thing is more nihilistic. I know I'm human. I know at least some of you are still human, otherwise you'd attack me. Macready's stance mirrors America's stance during the Cold War, Nash equilibrium. Despite the paranoia and suspicion at its peak, they still interact with each other. Though individuals, they form a community. That's why the Thing can assimilate them. But Macready is different. His individuality is based on complete isolation. At the time, this stance didn't resonate with American audiences. Released the same month as Steven Spielberg's E.T., The Thing bombed terribly and damaged Carpenter's career. Spielberg's Alien was benevolent, childlike, and had a happy ending. While people enjoyed that, Carpenter's interpretation was met with cold reception. Ironically, E.T. is now somewhat forgotten, while The Thing is more beloved than ever. This is largely due to the ending. Originally, in Lancaster's script, both Macready and Childs are assimilated. When the rescue team arrives, they trick them and spread the Thing to all of humanity. Another alternative ending was filmed where Macready survives, and another where everyone dies and a dog sets out again. None were used. In the film's final scene, after Macready blows up the entire station, he sits down to await death. A moment later, Childs appears and sits across from him. As viewers, we don't know who is human and who isn't. We're left with an open ending. For years, fans have debated this finale. Some say you can see Macready's breath in the cold, but not Childs's, meaning Childs is the Thing. Another theory says Macready offers Childs a bottle of whiskey that's actually gasoline, and since Childs doesn't notice the taste, Macready realizes Childs is assimilated. According to cinematographer Dean Cundy, when filming humans they used a light to reflect in their eyes, but they did not do so in the Thing's scenes. According to that, Childs is the Thing. As you can see, there are many theories. And let me tell you something, most likely Childs really is assimilated and the Thing. He has no interest in assimilating Macready at this point, and Macready knows it. But let me also tell you something else, it doesn't matter. It no longer matters who is the Thing. What matters is that everyone suspects everyone else. Paranoia. Just like the Cold War, wait and see.
Why don't we just wait here for a little while?
As one of Nietzsche's often quoted and often misunderstood lines says, "He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. And if you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you."